Why, hello there. It's me, Jeremy, your favorite bald dude telling you about Standard and Strange, a store and a brand with simple rules. Sell clothes they themselves would wear, manufacture it ethically, and build it to last. From boots made in Oregon to loop wheel garments made in Japan, find all the best clothes for your wardrobe at Standard and Strange. StandardandStrange.com. Hey folks, it's Jeremy. You're listening to Blammo. We're in it now. You feel that? You feel that? You feel it right now? We're in it. We're in that air quote holiday season. You know what I'm talking about? I don't even know why I air quoted it. We're in the holiday season. Look, your boy, I'm blasting all the tunes right now. We got Johnny Mathis, we got Bing, we got Elvis. I mean, I'm just listening to like holiday music. Also listening to the new Wild Nothing album, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I'm just saying, like, you know, call me Rudolph the way I'm glowing right now. I mean it. Also, Black Friday just wrapped up, or Cyber Monday, or whatever. I think today is Cyber Monday when this album is going out. What a stupid name for a holiday. Sorry, I'm not negative, but just like what is going on with this stuff? You know, because I was getting just bombarded with ads, and then I'm like sitting there like everyone else, and you're just like on the toilet, and you're like, I guess I'll buy this spatula. I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know. But like I like gift guides. You know, if you really want to know what folks are buying, by the way, we do have a whole Blammo gift guide coming out. You know, as you can see, I plug it when I clown on a spatula from the toilet. But you can get as consumeristic as you want on it. It's awesome. I will say this, and I say it a lot. My goal every year, I'm like, this is what I really want. My goal is to just have a sick, like, stereo room in my house. Like, just a room with a couple of chairs, a record player, a CD player. Yes, a CD player. By the way, I think I should just be having more CDs. But, like, physical media for life. Like I was saying earlier, Jack Tatum of Wild Nothing is here this week. I say of Wild Nothing. He is Wild Nothing. By the way, if you're not a fan, I don't even know what you're doing with your life. They're one of my favorite bands. I've loved the band for years, and the dude is he's an incredible musician. He has a new LP called Hold that we get into, but we discuss how parenthood changes music. You know, homie's a dad now, living in the suburbs, getting fits off on tour, the creative process, and what he's been up to, folks. Let's get into it. Jack Tatum from Wild Nothing. Let's go. I've been listening to the record.
Cool.
It's very good. It's very, very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You were in the heavy transition, man.
Yeah.
How's that holding up?
In what sense, though?
Well, so, I mean, I'll kind of jump in because you and I have a pretty similar background in terms of during the pandemic. My wife, I was living in New York for 16 some odd years, and we had one kid at the time, a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And we were just on top of each other in Bay Ridge, and it was just a complete shit show. And also, I don't know how much, you know, it's funny because I think many of us are like blocking out that like traumatic moment in our lives of like this uncertainty. And, you know, you kind of look back at it now and you're like, what the fuck were we doing? We were like spraying our groceries. We were freaking out. We were obsessed with like, you know, the news and stuff.
I think about the sanitizing of the groceries so often because it, like, in retrospect, it just seems so wild. And like, yeah, it's like no wonder I have crazy PTSD about like when my son was an infant, because it's like I had like a 3-week-old baby, and then I was coming home from the grocery store like with the gloves and all the shit and like, you know, sanitizing. It was like so terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was like, man, I was such a head trip, you know. Because
then you had a kid, or did you have did you have your son?
Yeah. So I just have one son, and he was born like 2 weeks before COVID lockdown started.
Okay, so you at least got to have the kind of a little bit more. I don't know how to.
Yeah, it was like on the horizon, but you know, it was very much just like, oh, that sounds suspect, but you know, we were so focused in on having a child, and he also came early. Like he was premature, and so we were kind of just thrust into this situation. And then like we got to see my parents for maybe the first 4 or 5 days or something, and then after that all just went haywire, and we were like, everyone was too afraid to see anybody, and like So we pretty much spent like the first 2 months of like our son's life, like not seeing a single soul because we were just like so terrified.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think. Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Like, there's no regrets on that. I
Yeah.
mean, we were
Yeah.
freaking out, and I remember we would go for walks, and we had a 2-year-old at the time, and so we're kind of walking around Bay Ridge, and there wasn't really many places open, and then a lot of places,
Hmm.
I don't know, because you were in LA during this time, or had you already moved?
No, so I had already moved back to Virginia.
Okay.
So yeah, I had lived. I actually moved to Richmond like shortly before my last record came out.
Oh,
So
snap.
I've been here for like 5 years, which is kind of wild.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I was in LA previously, and then yeah, which like I remember just feeling like so grateful that we weren't there.
Dude, it was nuts. It was crazy. Anyone in a big city during
Yeah,
the pandemic, just huge props to them because it
yeah,
was insanity and you didn't know how to react. And then you were still like, well, but I'm still going to order food. And these people, and then you're like, do I like
yeah,
triple my tip? Do I do this? Like there was all these weird new
yeah,
etiquette things that were coming into play. And then everything was just like covered in saran wrap or outside. And it was just
yeah.
some of the most like bonkers stuff ever. And then, we had a kid in 2020. Oh my God, 2022? I think 22. I don't,
Hmm.
yeah, we had our second, Jesus, this is embarrassing. My editor's going to
No,
be
no,
like,
it's
you
fine.
clown. I don't know, leave it in, buddy. And, and so like
Yeah.
we were just in the same boat of just this kind of like bizarro chaos. But, and this is what, I'm really excited to talk to you about because I think you kind of, as I've listened to your music over the years, I mean, this is what, your fifth album?
It's my fifth one. Yeah. Hmm.
You're like fully formed now, mature adult Jack.
Yeah.
This isn't the like I got the cool pedal and I sound like this other band
Yeah.
thing. You're now
No,
you.
this is like my VH1 adult alternative record. It's like how I see it.
Yeah, I mean,
Half jokingly, you know.
no, I mean it's great. It's really really good. But yeah, I am curious because it's like how have you kind of waded through the like relationship evolution with peers? Because for us, when we moved away from big city, and then also when we made our kids more the priority, and I'm not projecting here, this is just stuff we've
Hmm.
processed. We kind of lost some friends because we have,
Yeah.
I have some friends who are still like running around like trying to do cocaine and stuff. And I'm just like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm dealing with daycare and Block and Blippy.
It's such a it's a oh my God, don't even get me started on Blippi. I don't think I even have the stomach to talk about that monster. Yeah, no, it's so true. It's just, I mean, it's obvious, right? It's obvious that your life would change in almost every way possible. But yeah, it's weird too being a career musician, having a child, just because so much of your social life, at least my social life, was revolved around music and going out to shows and kind of like seeing your friends' bands every time they would pass through town. And now I'm just kind of like, good luck, like you're coming through Virginia. Oh, well, have fun.
Yeah. What time's the show?
Um,
Do you have any afternoon shows? Can we do something in the day?
yeah, yeah, but I know it's really trippy, and it's funny too. Like I feel like I'm now looking back, so I'm 35, and so I'm thinking about when I was living in New York in like my early to mid 20s, and there's like I was hanging out with people like much older than me all the time, not thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm just like, oh, like yeah, my friend that was like approaching 40 that I was hanging out with when I was like 25, they were just like living the Peter Pan lifestyle, and I can't relate anymore.
Yeah. I mean, at least, for me, like a lot of your earlier stuff was like these really beautiful love songs and just kind of like
Yeah.
it was very much youth. Like if I could
Oh,
summarize.
super,
Yeah.
yeah, super innocent, like very, very like, I don't know, like pretty like pure stuff, like the kind of stuff that comes like out of your teenage years and your like early adulthood for sure.
Yeah, and now
Yeah.
you're in the divine, man. You're weighing
Hmm.
the existentialism and stuff. I mean, did this stuff
Yeah.
come naturally, or like I'm curious, like what is your writing process like in terms of how you get started?
I mean, yeah, I think early on, so much of my music was just really wrapped up exclusively in sort of the ins and outs of like romantic relationships, and that just being kind of the most important thing to me as like a kid. Whereas now it's like, I don't know. I think you naturally just want to explore other themes and other topics in your music as you get older, and I think I've become a lot more comfortable too, just with like touching on self-doubt, or just sort of like any sort of like spiritual searching, or just like asking questions about like what am I doing here.
Yeah.
Like in the very general sense. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just slowly shifted a little bit as I've gotten older, and like the things that I listen to, and the kind of like stuff that is meaningful to me has shifted.
What were you listening to?
I don't know. I mean, I think I've always had an interest in kind of like revisiting really huge like career artists that I already respected, but like have such deep catalogs that it can be really intimidating sometimes to like go through and be like, oh, like where do I even really begin with this? And I feel like I had that experience over the past couple years with people like Joni Mitchell, of like I got super into like a couple of these like Joni Mitchell records in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Like specifically this one, Dog Eat Dog, which is sort of like it's a pretty hated on record, I think, in like amongst the Joni Mitchell catalog, just because it's like was produced, I think, or produced or co-produced by Thomas Dolby, who I'm like a huge Thomas Dolby freak. I love Thomas Dolby, which is like like who is really a self-described Thomas Dolby head, but I am. But like most people know him just because of the sort of like kitschy tracks that he made back in the day, like She Blinded Me with Science. But he was like a pretty prominent producer for like a certain period of time, like did all the Prefab Sprout records and that kind of thing.
Right.
But anyway, he like worked on this Joni Mitchell record, and I love it. It's just so good. Yeah, just stuff like that, like Annie Lennox. I got really into like listening to some Annie Lennox solo records, like Diva.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who turned you on to Annie
stuff
Lennox? Because I know like it was huge in the, we're close to the same age, but like what made you want to revisit the stuff that like maybe your folks listen to or whatever?
I mean, I've always been a Eurythmics fan.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, it's like I don't know if it's just the age that I'm at now, where like I'm starting to kind of like have these weird like musical childhood flashback things that like didn't never really like touched me before, but suddenly I was remembering the Walking on Glass video.
Yes.
From when I was a kid and just seeing that on TV. And like I remember like really liking that song as a kid.
It's a phenomenal song. Really holds up.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. And then Why is like such an amazing ballad.
Mm-hmm.
But stuff like that, where it's like these songs that were just kind of like have always been floating in the ether for me, just like being someone who like grew up in the 90s, and that was just sort of like the stuff that would be on the radio. And I don't know, I really like I really like sort of like switching my ideas about people that I already have like conceptions of.
Okay.
In the same way that like I've been revisiting a lot of like Madonna records too. And stuff like there's this one song that I've been so obsessed with from her record Music. I think it's called Music. It's like What It Feels Like for a Girl's, I think the name of the song. Was so good. And yeah, like I don't know, just stuff like that, where it's just kind of like doing deep dives on like big name artist catalogs, because they have so much music, and it's like you might think they were like a certain thing, but you can see how much they changed over their careers, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's happened with me a lot as I've kind of, like I got really into like specifically 90s Dylan for a while, because I was like, what the fuck was going on? And in a weird way, I feel now, and I'm curious if you ever feel this too, is like I think a lot of people are really, really hard specifically on musicians. I think there's a lot of angst and emotion that's directed towards artists in general, but musicians, it's always different because music is so personal to people. You can make a film, you can make things like that, and it may not resonate with whatever folks, but like music, it's just so emotional, and where people are when they experience it, and then also the relationship that they have or have built up during that artist's career, into which, it's a lot of times when people will like dunk on an album and then 10 years later, they're like, you know what? That was actually a really good album. And it was like, the music never changed. You did. And so I'm kind of curious how much, what your thoughts are on that, because I feel like that's, especially now in this like social media era where people really just want to have a direct relationship with artists. Like sometimes it's like, dude, why don't you like let's try to respect the process of this artist's life and like how they're trying to create this stuff on their own. Sometimes I think some musicians they're just trying to figure out their life, and the only way to do it is through the music.
Yeah. I certainly feel like I'm just trying to figure out my life through my music. And yeah, I don't know. That's so weird. Like there's so many weird things about sort of the relationship between kind of like creator and viewer.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I think there's a lot of positive like artist and fan relationships.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, I'm incredibly thankful that I have an audience at all for like my sort of like fairly niche thing that I do. But yeah, it's like I feel like it should be way more accepted for like people to just make bad stuff. like some like sometimes you're just gonna make bad stuff, like, and like that's part of just creativity, right? Is like,
yeah, I agree.
And it's like, you know, if you're brave enough to release the bad stuff, then like, I don't know, people should just sort of like roll with the punches. All right, like I think about that all the time where it's like, you know, there might be an artist that I like and they release something and I can tell, like, you know, that's like I can tell within 5 listens that like this is not my thing. Like this is not the one for me.
Yeah.
But I've never once been like, oh man, that's a bummer. Oh, time to go on like a social media tirade about how this record really sucks and the last one was awesome. It's like, no, like you just kind of like, you shelf it. Maybe you revisit it later. And like you said, like maybe something about you will change and that like you'll find that like, oh yeah, like I just wasn't in a place where I could relate to this record or something. Or maybe it sucks and that's fine. And then like maybe the next one is good. Like I just feel like it would be cool if there was like it was more socially acceptable to like let our artists fail sometimes or something.
Yeah, no, I think
that makes sense.
No, that's a good take. I mean, and especially like we'll define failure, right? I mean, is it monetarily? Is it, you know, because there are a lot of artists out there that can drop a stinker and still make, you know, 7 figures on the road, but it's just their back catalog that they're doing. And I think sometimes it's more of like, yeah, like I just want to see, you know, and this is a thing that especially I relate to now more as a parent and as a, you know, an elder millennial, for lack of a better term, where like I have deep sympathetic relationships for some of these artists where I'm like, well, maybe you were trying to scratch this itch, or maybe you were trying to explore this part of you, and the only way you knew how was through your music. And now someone's trying to dunk on you, or someone's trying to turn it into this. And it's like, because yeah, like my experience with your music is so much about the time of my life when I lived in Brooklyn and like going to see early Wild Nothing shows and all this stuff. And really, you know, trying to figure out like your guitar sound and like what were all the, you know, the production tightness. And now I go back and listen to these records and I'm just sitting here like enjoying it. Like I'm not trying to analyze it. I'm not trying to like compete with it. You know, it's just, and I think like, you know, what's the sort of scenario that we can set with musicians and artists in general where that can be the norm versus like, yeah, I hear, but you know what? You're way overcompressed and you're not sold on this outlet and you didn't make a Spotify reel. And so, you know, it's just like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. And it's, you know, I don't want to like sit here and play the game of like, oh man, you know, like back in the day they had it so good because before, but like I do think about it sometimes where it's like how nice that must have been to make music before social media, where like really you're only like, you would make a thing, you would put it out. Press sort of still operated in a relatively like similar way, but otherwise it's like you would see what critics said, but otherwise your only sort of like interaction with the people that listen to your music would just be like at a show or something. You know what I mean? And like I don't know, I would imagine that people probably thought about that relationship a little bit less. Whereas like I think because of social media, you're just always in it. It's just like every time you want to update, or, you know, like update people about something that you're doing, it's like you're just like in it and you see it all and it's all just in your face, which is like good and bad because it's like never has there been such direct access to people that like dig what you're doing, which is like, that's so lucky to have that. But it's also I think it forces you, or it doesn't force you. I mean, maybe some people are better at it than others, but I feel like it creates this environment where like you kind of can't not think about the people listening to your music if you're like someone who does it professionally. Yeah.
You know, it's like I often wonder, like, do some musicians write songs where like, here, this is for the fans, and then this is for me. Like the same way you'll have, you know, some actor do a movie where it's like they did an indie movie, well that was for them. Oh, okay, they did a Marvel movie, that was for the fans. You know, like. Have you wrestled with that with any songs you've written?
I think at the end of the day, I try to kind of like maintain that philosophy of, you know, do what you would do regardless of like in any other sort of input. But the truth is that like I feel like I can't always live by that. And I don't think I change anything about what I do, but I sometimes do think about like what sort of song this is or something, or like I might write a song and be like, oh, like this is an exciting song for me because it feels like I'm like scratching a new itch. Or I might write a song and instantly be like, oh, like this is a song that I feel like is unintentionally a little bit of like fan service, where I'm writing a song that is like is very much within my wheelhouse, and like someone in theory would listen to it and like not be surprised.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I mean, I think specifically with Wild Nothing and your band, like when you guys first, well, you like kind of came onto the scene, I mean, it was huge. And, you know, it's almost like, and maybe in hindsight, you're like, no, this is wrong. But it felt like, you know, bands like the XX and Wild Nothing and all this stuff, you guys just kind of blow up overnight. Did you have anyone else that kind of came alongside you to kind of help you handle the craziness of it all? You know, like Tom York talks about how Michael Stipe saved his life and career because he couldn't handle the success of Radiohead. Was there anyone that kind of helped you with your career? Yeah,
I mean, you know, early on, I had a pretty close relationship with Mike Sniper, who ran Capture Tracks, and was kind of like a big reason why I even sort of was able to get my music out there in the way that I did early on. I mean, there's a lot of people that I worked with that I feel like kind of helped me keep my head screwed on. But also, you know, like I think there was a lot of other factors that were more sort of like just within my personal life, of like having a really close relationship with my parents, where I feel like my parents have always kind of like held me accountable for like being a good person and not like having a crazy ego, which like, you know, like I feel like I very easily could have in the beginning taken the success of my early records and just sort of like spun out because of it. But like, I feel like I always kind of like played it not safe, but I feel like I always just tried to sort of like go with the flow, and like whatever was happening, and like because it was like, honestly, it was pretty surreal and freaky to just be like a kid not even out of college suddenly having like major publications write about your music that you recorded at home, and I was like woefully unprepared for it. And it's like I think I don't know, you can't like, I have zero regrets about sort of like how my career has progressed, because I think I mean, truthfully, it's like it's a minor miracle that I'm even still able to like write records and have an audience, you know, now 13 years on from making my first record.
Oh, come on, why is that?
Just because, well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, don't let me shit talk myself. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying like, well, I just think having like a longer career in music in general is like just kind of hard. And I've seen a lot of burnout, you know, like I've been friends with a lot of people in bands who, you know, I feel like I've seen it all. I've been sort of like, I've seen bands get way bigger than my band in a very short amount of time and then like fizzle out within like 3 years. Or like vice versa, where, you know, see people like really struggle for a long time and then like finally find success, or I don't know. And I think for me, I've just been lucky that it's always felt like this very sort of reasonable, comfortable build of sorts.
I mean, you mentioned the support structure of your family, but was that something you were aware of in the moment, or are you now more aware of now that you're a parent?
I think about it a lot, right? Because I mean, it's like it's almost impossible to think about your parents as people until you reach a certain age.
You're exactly right. I agree.
Yeah. So it's like, I feel like I remember like it really wasn't until I was in college that you start to sort of have this relationship with your parents as people, as like individuals, outside of just these you know, like guardian figures of.
You mean that you realize they're flawed, right?
Oh yeah, you realize all of it. Yeah. and it's funny, like you know, it's funny those first few times, right, when you realize that like the advice that your parents give you like might not necessarily be the best advice.
Oh God.
Or something.
It's a brutal moment. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's tough. Yeah.
Which I have to say, I'm very lucky in the sense that like I think that my parents generally have very good advice, and they're also, they kind of keep it close to the chest, where they're not the type to just force advice upon me. It's only if I ever ask for it, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Which I feel like is something that I definitely want to do for my son, of just like, he can ask me for advice whenever he wants, but I'm not just gonna like automatically assume that he wants it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
that's a hell of an epiphany.
Yeah.
You know, I say this like, so my dad's health is not great, but my dad was in this band in the 80s and late 70s, and he played with some big people. You know, he played with Dan Peek of America. He played with a lot of like, you know, like legit bands, and he did some of his own records. And the thing that I realize now, because I'll occasionally go and I'll listen to his music, and some of it is awful, and some of it really fucking slaps. Like, it's really, really good. And I think about like, oh my God, like what an incredible gift I got from him, even though he's not in the state that I want him to be now as an adult. I have his music. Have you thought about that with your son?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of can't wait until, well, and that's the other thing too, is that like, I don't ever want to like force his relationship with the things that I've created. I think he'll find them in time if he's interested. And I think it might take, who knows how long. I don't know like when he will have an interest. I'm sure. I mean, he already like, he's around it, and he sees it, and he's, he's like already a really sweet and aware kid, and like has an awareness about this record, and about like me putting out a record, and the fact that there's like songs on the record that talk about him. And like there's the last song on the record is this song called Pulling Down the Moon, that's pretty much kind of the only like super direct song about him, about parenthood. And he knows that, and he calls it Calder's song, and he likes to listen to it. And there's a little clip of him in it. And yeah, it's like, it's so sweet. And then I don't know. Yeah, he'll ask me a lot too about like other music that I've made, or like I was like I've been doing some like production and writing stuff over the past few years for other people, and I had done this song with Michelle from Japanese Breakfast, and I had like played it for him one time, and then she also like sort of recently came to Richmond to like work on some other stuff, and I was like playing him something, and just out of nowhere he was like, "Oh, is this the song that you made with Michelle?" Or like he just like remembers these things, and kind of like he's like always making these connections about like, "Oh, is this like a song that you made? Is this a song that you worked on?" Which I guess shows how much I listen to my own music in the house, that he like can't tell a difference. But yeah, I don't know. It's just really sweet.
Do you even loop wheel, bro? Do you know what loop wheel garments are? I actually didn't, honestly. I was just like, oh, it's a flex. It's a special kind of cotton. Yeah, kind of. But the folks at Standard and Strange dropped a ton of knowledge bombs and their own incredible loop wheel tee. Made in Japan, of course. But back to loop wheel. It's an antique circular knitting machine that relies on gravity and uses spring bearded needles. Do you get it? Bearded needles? What the heck? Look, all you need to know is it's dope. It's better, and if you want to learn more, visit standardandstrange.com/loopwheel and check out their new loop wheel tees. Trust me, your boy is partial to yellow because, duh, but the tees are fire no matter what color you pick. The fit is spot on, and it's a classic tee that looks like it's from every era ever and fits like a dream. And it's from the folks from Standard and Strange, the shop that helps you own fewer, better things. Run by industry vets who are focused on incredible product from incredible vendors. And look, if that's not your vibe, check out some of their huge offerings of other Japanese denim or boots. But listen, the shirts, fam, the shirts, the loop wheel. So visit standardandstrange.com/loop wheel to learn more. Standard and Strange. Own fewer, better things at standardandstrange.com. That's a big achievement, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing that you're able to like, not just have a career, but like a very prosperous career making music for people that love. But like when you think about how that impacts your family, I only say this because now like it's stuff that I've really processed. I have a almost 6-year-old, and then I have like a 15-month-old, and my daughter like has opinions on bands,
Yeah.
Like we were listening to the new Beirut album, and she fucking loves it.
Yeah.
Like there's stuff that I've put on that she's like, I do not like this. Like I tried to
Yeah.
show her like Motley Crue and stuff, and she thought it was kind of funny, but she's like, does it stay like this the whole time? And I was like, damn,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
she's not into the she's not into the AB, standard song and distortion. She loves the Beatles. She loves the White Album.
Yeah.
And, I was like, oh man, I was like, she really resonates with some of this stuff. And the other day, we got her one of those Loog guitars, which is like the kind of
I know
fake
this
little,
one.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard her trying to play music, and she was trying to sing songs. And,
that's awesome.
it was just so incredible. But like, I'm envious of the people who get to do that stuff and make their kids' dreams come true with that. I don't know. I think it's an incredible gift that you have, and not only do you do that, but like, the music you're doing is incredible too. So it's
Thank
cool.
you. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's cool to just kind of like, because I feel that way about like my wife Donna too, where it's like she's so used to what I do that it's not that it isn't special, but it's just such a part of kind of like our daily life.
Yeah.
And I love now that with my son, it's like starting to feel that way, where it's like, it's not that it isn't magical, but it's like he's just around it so much that it's kind of just becoming like a part of his upbringing in a way that I'm like really glad that I will be able to offer him that, or just like and just with like having a studio at the house, like, any interest that he shows in anything, it's just like, I can just like be like, yeah, let's do it. I'll set you up with like this or that, or, but we'll see. He's still young enough that he's not really like, I mean, he'll go like bang on my keyboards, but yeah.
Yeah, I tried to
the
teach.
Extent of it.
Yeah, I tried to teach my daughter Harriet the guitar, and it did not go well. I was like, well, here, let me show you. And she's like, Dad, I just don't want to do this. I'm like,
yeah.
Fuck.
And I think with kids too, it's like they just need to like approach it on their own. And I was the same way, like, because my dad is also a musician, and so we always had guitars, just like kind of laying around the house. And yeah, it wasn't until I was like 10 and sort of like had my own taste in music where I was kind of like, oh yeah, I do actually maybe want you to show me the ropes a little bit. Like, can you teach me how to do some like basic stuff?
Wait, really?
And
I didn't know anything about that. What did he show you?
Yeah. I mean, my dad has played guitar since he was a teenager. And so, yeah, he taught me how to play guitar, just like taught me all the chords, taught me like scales and stuff. And then from there, he was like, it was kind of cool because he was hands off and just let me sort of like learn the music that I wanted to learn. And then if I ever had questions, he would help me out. But it was pretty much kind of like immediately after he showed me like the basic stuff, I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to go to my room for like 3 weeks. I'll see you later.
Peace, man.
And just like, and like learned every Weezer song that I possibly could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because, I remember asking my dad to teach me Smashing Pumpkins songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I want to play Zero. And he was like, no, that song is basic. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you should listen to Steely Dan or Al Stewart. And he'd play it for me. And I was like, Dad, this music sucks. And now I find myself listening. I mean, I still love Pumpkins, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But I find myself listening to, so much 70s music just all the time.
Yeah. You come to appreciate musicianship a lot more as you get older, I think, because as a kid it's like that stuff is such a turnoff. I feel like the idea of being like overly proficient in anything was such a turnoff to me. Like I just wanted to listen to the most ramshackle music, because I think especially too as like a beginning musician or like starting to piece together your own songs, you kind of need to listen to something that feels within reach. You kind of need to listen to something that it's inspiring when you throw on a record and be like, oh, like I could sort of see how someone would make this, and I think for me that was like I that's why I was so attracted to like Phil Obram when I was in high school. I was like obsessed with the microphones and Mount Erie, because there was always something about his music that felt kind of a little bit attainable, at least in the way that it sounded and the way that
the lo-fi sort of
recorded
cassette tape.
Yeah. And I mean, he was on another level, like lyrically and thematically than from where I was as a 15-year-old. But there was like, it was really inspiring, I think, to someone who knew nothing about what they were doing. But yeah, it was like kind of from the get-go, I was like more interested in writing songs and recording than I was even in playing guitar. It was just like a means to an end,
Was there ever anything that you felt like, I always wanted to do this when I was recording, and now you've gotten to do it?
I think so. I think I've done everything that I could hope to do. It's like I've recorded in like really amazing studios and
Recorded Real World yet?
I haven't. No, I mean,
Add that to the list. There you go.
Forget about it. I mean, yeah, I would love that. I would love that. I know. I'm not even sure I want to start talking about Peter Gabriel because I won't be able to stop.
Dude, yeah, I've just rediscovered like solo Peter Gabriel and specifically the live shows. The live shows. I mean, some of them are a little weird because it's like kind of theater, you know? I mean, he's like pulling an imaginary rope.
You've seen the video where he's like, I think he's playing like Salisbury Hill or something. He's just like riding around a giant stage on a little bike.
Yeah, yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I was like, what? Yeah. I mean, speaking of, you're about to tour like soon, very soon. Probably by the time this is out, you'll be on tour.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a shorty this time. We wanted to kind of save any extensive touring that we do for next year, just because that was sort of like how it worked behind the scenes for us. Mm-hmm. But we definitely wanted to kind of like get out and play some shows right after the record came out, and just kind of like show face and have a reason to start playing again. But yeah, it's exciting. It's like we have done a couple tours over the past couple years, but I'm really looking forward to like playing new tracks and kind of piecing together a slightly different situation.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, how much time goes into building the set list, because now you have a pretty full catalog to play in a show.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I feel like I try and approach it very democratically. So I feel like I started building the set list where it's just like, it's just like, all right, 2 songs from each record, start there. Good. Then we'll kind of like we'll see where the wind blows us. Because it's like I've never really been the type to like very stubbornly want to play a new record top to bottom as soon as it comes out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, like undoubtedly we'll still play a lot of the new record, but I think to me, I feel like when you go see a band, it's like that's sort of the point, is not necessarily to have it be like a full on like best of hits compilation, but I think it should be like retrospective in the sense that it kind of like takes everything you've done into consideration a little bit. Like those are the shows that I enjoy the most.
Yeah. Are you bringing the fam on the road?
I'm not.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's like
a lot of FaceTime.
A lot of FaceTime. Yeah, I mean, he's in school. He's in preschool now, and so it would get complicated with having to take him out of any. And just like truthfully, having a 3-year-old on tour with you,
I know,
not fun. Not
I
fun
look back
for
at the
anybody.
Paul McCartney stuff. I'm like, how the hell was he doing it?
Yeah.
Oh, he was super rich. Forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah, which unfortunately I'm not. So
me either.
If only I was.
It's like, yeah, the whole family in a big bus driving around doing wings, and you're just like, oh, okay.
No, yeah, like Donna and my son in our like Sprinter van with 6 other people, not gonna fly. Our son would be screaming to go home after half an hour.
Yeah, that makes sense. At least you're in the Sprinter though. No more weird minivan and falling asleep on someone's arm or something.
Yeah, true.
What are the tour fits looking like here? How much time do you put in? Because here's the thing: when I first saw you play, this was like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this was like APC New Standard era, Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And what have you thought much about like what you're wearing when you go out there now, or is this just out of curiosity?
Oh God, no, it's like I should. I've never been a flashy dresser. I'm.
Oh, it's always the if you know, you know. It's not about the flash. You're good.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, like I feel like every time I go on tour, I usually go on a little mini shopping spree, just picking up some new stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like there's a place in Richmond now. Actually, it's like quite a nice menswear store called Ohm Shop. Like HOMME. But they stock a lot of cool stuff like Corridor and like Beams Plus and yeah, and I feel like that's the kind of stuff that I'm usually after, is just like pretty just sort of like classic day to day, just like made well, as in like
well made versus the J. Crew brand, yeah. Which Madewell, the new Madewell, by the way, is actually
the new Madewell is pretty nice. Yeah, I got those new Weegens actually that they made with GH Bass.
I mean, you were saying you kind of just like get ready and get a bunch of things before you go on the road. Like, what do you do in the meantime? Like, do you ever just like go nuts, like browsing hashtags and different brands and stuff that you find on Instagram, or what have you been into lately?
Not a ton. I'm not like a super deep fashion head, although like I definitely try and pick up kind of like nice pieces here and there. But and I like to just kind of like seeking out old, like every once in a while I'll maybe like try and find like a cool like vintage designer piece, like jacket or whatever. But yeah, mostly I just buy stuff secondhand, just like, there's pretty good vintage shopping in Richmond. Luckily,
There
and it's like
is.
so much cheaper than it would be. Like every time I would have like my bandmates that were living in LA come rehearse in Richmond, they would like hit all these vintage stores and just be like, "Oh my God." They would like would be shocked. And I'm just like, "Yeah, man. Life is easy when you just like move to Virginia."
Yeah, I was gonna say, how have you adjusted with the suburb life? Because I know you've been there for a while,
Hmm.
but like,
Yeah.
no crazy metropolitan city is a little bit different. I mean, I'm in St. Louis now, I'm
Yeah.
not in New York, so I
Right.
feel you in the suburbs.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a sort of a similar situation for you, although St. Louis is quite a lot bigger than Richmond. But
Is it? I didn't
I
even know.
mean, like, I don't know. Richmond is. I feel like Richmond is really kind of an unsung city on the East Coast, where it's like,
Oh my God, yeah,
um,
226,000 people in Richmond. Thank you,
yeah,
Google.
yeah, which is small. But then when you start looking at like the metro area or whatever, it's it gets a little closer to like 1 million people. But
Right.
but
Well,
yeah, it's just like it's for the size that it is and the amount of cool stuff that it has in it. It's like it's pretty surprising, and I feel like every time I have friends come through, they're sort of like, oh, like yeah, I understand. But it's also like for me, obviously, it's incredibly convenient because it's like an hour away from where my parents live. It's
get
I
that
have
free
so many.
childcare.
Oh yeah, man. Yes, I can't imagine my life without like my parents being around to help with our son, because it does take a village, dude.
Yep.
It's not easy raising a kid. But yeah, so I love it. I'm loving it. I really like being back in Virginia. It's always sort of been where my heart is really. I've lived a few other places, New York, LA. I lived in Savannah, Georgia, actually, for a little bit when I was much younger, like right out of
Wait, did you
college.
go to SCAD?
No, but I had a lot of friends that did, and so yeah, it's kind of weird. In retrospect, it was sort of a dumb move, but like right after,
You
like the
turned out
first year
okay.
that Wild Nothing. No, I just mean like I was just out of college. Like Jim and I had just come out my first record, and most of my friends were moving up to New York because that's just like what you do.
Yep.
But I was like, I'm gonna move to Savannah, Georgia, and
I'll show them.
and so I did. Yeah, which like to this day, Savannah is probably one of, if not my favorite city in America. It's so beautiful, and like I really love it. But it was sort of a weird move career wise. So I left shortly after being there for like a year. Anyway, the point being is like I've never felt as at home anywhere as I do in Virginia. It's just sort of like, a big part of me.
Yeah. What I mean, so it sounds like you're a lifer there now, huh?
I think we're pretty, yeah, we're setting pretty deep roots.
Nice.
But I always leave myself open a little bit. If something were to change, I wouldn't like purposely shoo it away. But yeah.
What's been the biggest sort of like splurge that you've done now that you have been doing well as a career musician? Has it been like getting nuts with a bunch of Neve channels or what?
Yeah, I've definitely upgraded the studio a couple times since moving here. Although to be honest, like I haven't really bought much recently in the music department. I'm onto like furniture and shit because I'm old. So it's like
Okay, here we go.
it's
The
like
podcast
I'm
just
like
started.
lusting. I'm lusting after furniture, not music gear.
See, that's the moment when you feel like you really hit real adulthood, is all of a sudden you and your friends, it used to be you'd flex on like, oh yeah, well yeah, sure, I got APC jeans too, whatever. And then it'd be like, well, I got this iPhone or I got this whatever. And now you're flexing on folks with chairs. So hit me. What do you got?
Yeah.
Do you got a Judd chair in there? What's going on over there?
No, see, that's the thing is that like I'm such a window shopper, and also I have well, I mean I have a 3-year-old and I
Yeah.
have a cat. I have a who
Ooh.
I air quotes love, but
Yeah.
yeah, she just like fucks up everything that I own. So
There
it's
goes
not
the
even
Eames.
worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm just like, but again, like Richmond, kind of a hotspot for all of this like amazing vintage modern furniture.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely like went through a phase of almost pulling the trigger on some like Italian post-mod stuff, and I'm kind of glad I didn't because it's like,
Whoa.
that's too much money to be spending on,
Well, but
like,
it's weird, right? Because, one of my like biggest hobbies is I go to like estatesales.net. Like I collect watches and furniture. I mean, anything that's dumb, basically assume that I've done it, like of buying
yeah.
dumb things. And down the street from me, there was this family. And because like I'm, St. Louis and Chicago are somewhat close. And so there's like a little bit of overlap. And there's this family, and the guy had a bunch of these Bertoya chairs. The like Harry Bertoya, like the mesh.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you have 5 of these. Oh, and you have the original pads and everything. I mean, they were in great condition. And I was like, what do you want for them? And he's like, I don't know, like $25 each. And I was like, holy shit. And next thing you know, I'm coming home with a bunch of chairs. And then my wife is like, stop buying random chairs. Like we're never even going to have enough people over here to sit. Like, but there's definitely an allure of living in the suburbs where you can just accumulate random cool shit.
It's true. In fact, I have 2 of the like diamond Batoa chairs just sitting in the other room that I also found at an estate sale.
There it is.
Oh my God. The estate sale scene in the suburbs, man. Oh man. That's where it's at. That's where the real excitement is.
Yeah. Everyone's going to hear the record, but you giving the people what they want, your taste in the furniture scene that's the gem of the show right here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, it's like I'm not a huge splurger, I'm just a modest guy that just goes about my life.
Yeah. I like, as I've gotten older, my environment at which I try to create, I pay way more attention to. Like when I lived in the Lower East Side, it was like milk crates for clothes and a mattress from Sleepy's that I had on the floor. And now I'm like, I don't know if I can be productive right now if I don't have my my Jeff McFetridge on the wall. Like it just, I'm just not sure.
Yeah, I know. It's like, and that was always my thing too, of like why it was probably inevitable that I would move away from the bigger cities, is that just my sense of space and sort of like having control over your space is so important to me. And I'm not like, it got to the point when we were in LA where I wasn't like hardly going out much. And it's like, you're just, so it's like, why not like invest in your space, as opposed to like, when you're not taking advantage of all of the best parts of living somewhere.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah. And I realized how elitist I was, at least for myself, when I came back here, because I was like, man, I would dunk on Target, I would dunk on McDonald's, and now I'm like, dude, don't fuck with my golden arches, man.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the funny thing too about like as much disdain as much distaste as I have about a lot of aspects of suburban living, or sort of like what that really means. It's also kind of like how I grew up. I grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I'm just like, I feel comforted by like big box stores. Like I feel at home at strip malls, and like, yeah. So I don't know.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
There's like an innocence about those experiences. I mean, it's why I really mourn malls, just like malls going away. Like the mall that I worked at when I was younger is being taken down. And, I was working at Banana Republic when I was 16 years old, and it was like, I thought I was king shit, and now there's nothing there. There's old people playing pickleball, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus wept, man.
I know.
We're starting to wrap up here. There's some kind of like basic whatever questions here I want to run through. So as you were making this record, what do you do to reset yourself? Is it, or like, what's your perfect day?
I mean, I think it's different now. I feel like my days are much more structured now because my son is in preschool, and it's like there's very sort of like clear delineation between the parts of the day and sort of which parts of the day are for what. And that was pretty hard, I think, for the first couple years that he was alive, and like while I was working on this record, is just kind of like really trying to find those moments where like not only did I just have the time period, but like also was able to like extract some sort of like creative or productive moment out of that. And I think that's a struggle of just kind of like being a parent who works in a creative field in general. Is just like you have to totally rethink the way that you work. And it's only been, I think, semi recently where I feel like I can I don't know, like feel okay about it. Because for a while it was hard not being able to like chase your creativity whenever you want. It's like you always feel like you're gonna let a good idea just die or something.
Yeah, like, a friend of mine, he's a pretty relatively big musician, and he's got a family, and he's like, oh, I just pick up my phone and I just voice note random, lyrics or melodies that pop into my head. He's like, and then, late at night when everyone's asleep, or he'll go to his studio and he'll then just parse through all of his notes. Is that anything you ever utilized, or?
A little bit, but I've never been a big like voice memo person. And I think part of it is because like to me recording is synonymous with writing. Like I
mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, no. It's just I mean, because that's always been the way that I work. It's like it's very rare that I will sit down like in my living room with an acoustic guitar and just like start strumming and like write a little ditty that I record on my voice memos. It's like almost always me sitting in front of a desk, like inputting the idea and then immediately trying to build layers upon it. So it's like, and I do it all the time. It's kind of bad, actually. I don't love this about my creative process, but it is what it is. Like a lot of times I'll start kind of like a song idea, and maybe I have an idea for a verse, and then I'll build the entire verse up as I imagine in my head with all the layers, all the instruments, everything. And then I'll have like this 15-second like part of a song that sounds like a finished song, but there's nothing else. Like there's and then I have to start from square one again and like build out the rest of the song. But I think it's something about like the way that my brain works where I can't like, I kind of need to hear it at least somewhat close to what I imagine the finished version would be before I can like even really like start unwrapping the whole thing. So for me, that's like why I kind of have to record while I write. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think for listeners too, I mean, that's not many people write that way. I mean, I'm sure there are others, right? But like that's most of the time it's the studio recording and the songwriting things are often done very different and at different times in different places.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's always cool, like, and it's kind of fun that now I've been starting to do production work, and like there's an artist, Molly Birch, that's on my label that I just produced her like whole last record that came out recently. And that was totally like a much more classic process of her bringing me songs that were just, like her on a piano singing, and then us being like, okay, well, I think we could build them out in this way. We could arrange it in this, using these instruments and these kinds of sounds, and then going into a studio and doing it all there. But for me, it's like everything is blurred. There's no sort of like definite stop or start point in terms of sort of like when one part of the process is over and then another one starts. It's all kind of just like fluid until I'm done with it.
Yeah. Do you see yourself ever doing more of like scoring or scores in general for folks?
Yeah, I would love to. Like I have a pretty deep interest in ambient music and instrumental music, and it's like I think for me it would take the right opportunity arising in order for me to like feel comfortable signing on to doing something like that, because from what I've heard, like people that have done that kind of work, it's like it ends up being a much bigger commitment than you even realize. So it's like that would sort of have to be the thing that I'm doing that year or something, just from kind of like what I've heard. but yeah, we'll see. There's so many different angles of working in music that I'm excited to explore as I get older. And like, I think I'll always make my own records, and I'll always have this outlet, whether it's Wild Nothing or just records I release as myself or what.
Mhm.
I'm very much interested in sort of like the other outlets available.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, Jack, thank you so much for your time. Congrats on the record.
Yeah, thank you.
Congrats on the tour.
Thanks.
I'm excited to see you. But it was great to meet you. I'll see you.
Yeah, it was great to meet you as well.
All right, take care. Thanks so much for listening. Check out Wild Nothing on Spotify. Their new album is called Hold. You've been listening to Blammo. Our show is produced by Blammo Media. We're edited by Amarlo. Our theme music, as always, by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. If you like what you heard, share the pod with a friend. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts, or the 5 stars on Spotify, or the thumbs up on whatever it is that you like. Just do what you do when you like a podcast. Follow us on Instagram for all the hot content. And if you want to talk to us and give us your hot take, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a message and we'll put it in a future episode, or basically just email us at info@blammopod.com. Last but not least, you got to check out the Blam Fam at patreon.com/Blammo, where we have tons of exclusive episodes. I mean, we got exclusive shows. We got Blammo Presents Die Workwear. We got the Triple J Show. New episodes coming this week. And just lots of goodies. So get in on that. Hope everyone's keeping warm or staying cool, whatever it is you're going to do. We'll see you soon.